Well, first off, before this video even starts, number one, I want to apologize in advance just in case this video comes out weird. This is my first time using my voice ever since quarantine started, so this is my first time processing thoughts in a long time, much less processing thoughts and transforming them into words. Not only that, this video isn't even scripted, so my bad in advance for whatever happens. Second off, if you don't have Purity and you're on this tutorial, go get it right now. Like, it's not expensive, you can buy it, but if you're broke, you're down bad, you got cockroaches running across the knuckles of your toes, then you can find ways to acquire it with air quotations. But it's not that expensive if you can't find it, so either buy it, do what you need to do, because you're gonna need it for plug&b, or plug in general, to be honest. Anything plug related, you need Purity. But once you have Purity, I recommend that you open it on your FL Studio, and then you just go into the piano roll with Purity and you start making your chords. Usually when I make my chords, sometimes I have a bad case of beat block, so I just kind of play around until I do something that sounds fire. After you have your chord progression, you're going to want to go into the lead melody. And the lead melody, just like the chord progression, you can keep it simple or as complicated as you want. You never want to overly complicate it or make it too simple to the point where it's boring. If you're going to keep it simple, like really simple, the least you can do is make it pretty, and you can do that with how you mix it, whatever effects you put on. You can really do whatever you want. There's a lot of freedom. Just don't have it be boring, you know? You can really use any of the leads. In a lot of plug&b beats, I see them use Autumn, Simple, Saw, or whatever. I don't have I make so many plug&b beats, but I don't have any of the presets memorized. But the one I used in the video is the one that I decided to stick with. It's the one that's in a lot of plug&b beats. It's probably the most popular lead that I would say is used, but I hear a lot of them. Like, so it's kind of hard to really pinpoint which one is the most popular, but this one is a pretty safe choice to use if you're really going for like a clean, like, oh, this is like you hear it and you're like, oh, this is plug&b. This is the lead that you would probably use, which is why I decided to use it for this tutorial. Same thing with my keys. I forgot to go over that. I always go for the Rhodes, whether that's the soft EP trim or the pretty suitcase or the pretty pad, which is pretty suitcase with an analog pad put behind the keys. I just stuck with pretty suitcase. You're gonna be hearing that in a lot of plug&b beats too, but the reason it sounds different in this video is because I already put some of my mixing effects into channel 1, and I set it to that because I already knew how I wanted my keys to sound, because I use the same effects on my keys for the most part, unless I really want to do something different or I'm using a different instrument. But for when it comes to Rhodes on Purity, I like to use my effects. But after the keys and the lead, then it's just kind of adding things to complement it. I'm keeping this beat pretty simple. I'm just gonna add a bell. And then after I added my bells, I added in some strings. Purity has a pretty good selection of strings. You can really use whatever you want, just whatever sounds pretty to you, or whatever you think you can make sound the prettiest. I just like to prioritize how pretty the beat is when I make plug&b. So after you do the melody, you're completely done with it, and you're not a fucking psychopath who makes the drum pattern first and then the melody, which is weird. It's like pouring milk into the bowl first. You're a psychopath. Please stay away from me if you do that, but don't stay away from the channel. Subscribe and hit the bell and drop a like if you pour milk first. Or if you don't and you pour cereal, if you breathe and take up space, you should subscribe. Anyways, after you make the melody, you can mix it if you want, or you can just go straight into the drums. When it comes to doing drums on plug&b, the hi-hats, you're usually just gonna fill out every single space on the channel or whatever, and have the hi-hats do the little thing. No two-step, you know, no just like a helicopter or like a fully automatic assault rifle. Just fast-paced hi-hats, you know. And I usually don't do those hi-hats a lot in my beats, but I decided to stick with the traditional plug&b method just for this tutorial. There are other types of plug&b you can do, like stuff that sounds like it's out of 90s R&B, you know, some real R. Kelly shit, you know, free my nigga Robert. That's a joke. Keep that nigga in jail. That was a joke. I do not mean that. I do not condone Robert Kelly. Don't take me out of context. Anyways, where was I? I don't even remember where I was in the fucking tutorial. Drums, hi-hat, clap. I put in the snare and a perk and the 808, and I added in a little chant, and that was it. I added in some effects when I was mixing. You know, I put a phaser on my strings. I put a delay on my bell and the lead too, to make the lead a little bit more spacier so it's not as dry sounding. The final mix, you want the final mix to really hit different than, like, you know, there's a lot of plug&b beats that I hear, and I can tell that they don't do a lot of mixing, and it still sounds good. But as for me, a lot of plug, especially plug, but a lot of plug and plug&b kind of have a similar sound. Since we're all using the same presets and instruments, you know, you might get some different drums, but when it comes to the instruments, like I said, purity, everybody uses purity. So you're gonna want to do something to differentiate yourself. I mix my, I've never really looked at any mixing tutorials. You know, I've learned how to EQ from tutorials, but when it comes to adding my own sauce, I just do my own thing. I just play around and do whatever works, and I just so happen to find a formula that I can fall back on when experimenting doesn't really go as well as I want it to at whatever time I'm doing it. So I'd recommend you do that, but just for transparency's sake, I put a phaser on my strings, you know, delay on bells and all the shit that I just said, basically. I'm very proud of the phaser on the strings. I've actually never done that before. This is my first time doing it, and it sounded really good with the final beat. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, let me know by dropping a like. Like I said, if you breathe and take up space, you should subscribe. And, you know, even if you don't want to exist, like, you're still in existence, so you should subscribe anyways. I don't know what I'm talking about. Here's the final product. Drop a like if you enjoyed, and if you guys want more tutorials, let me know. I can do some plug tutorials. I can do that whole 90s R&B tutorial for the plug&b style if you really want to, you know, hear how it's done. And yeah, that's it. Here's the beat.
Bonus.